Hello everyone, welcome to our presentation. Europe Irufar, and today we are talking about Chapter 26, Sharing, Investment, and the Financial System. Next slide. Europe has six members include Hoàng Hiệp, Khánh Vân, Hữu Tài, Quốc Công, Minh Hạnh, and me, Yến Hạnh. I will be the first presentation. Next slide. First, I would like to introduce a little bit about interest rates. The nature of interest is the bright power paid to use money not out by them, and is the return lender get for different spending. When talking about Vietnamese interest rate in the 50-year period from 2000 to 2020, interest rate was fluctuating during this period. I will talk about the period from 2006 to 2010. During this period, the world political and economic situation were complicated. The global financial crisis of 2008 to 2009 and the subsequent economic decline had a negative impact on the Vietnamese economy. To stay still mainstay from 2006 to October 2008, focused on controlling inflation, stabilizing the macroeconomy, limiting overhead economy. From November 2008 to the end of 2010, lotion to prevent an economy downturn. Next slide. From 2006 to 2007, rate interest rates were 8.25% per year. In 20%, Vietnam had a high growth rate on a very stable macroeconomic background, low inflation. Interest rates were very stable in this period. In 2008 market a rather fluctuating period in the economy due to the impact of the global financial crisis and the government's macro management. Inflation in this year is up to 23%, while GDP growth is only at 6.23%. On May 19, rise rate interest rate from 8.75 to 10%. On June 11, rate interest rate were adjusted to increase from 12% per year to 14%. To the end of 2008, the interest rate returned to a small rate at the beginning of the year, 8.5%. Next slide. Since the beginning of December 2009, in the face of new trends in the domestic and international market, the state bank has acted actively and flexibly adjusted price interest rate 8% per year after running 10 months of keeping it at say 7% since February 2009. In 2010, a year in which economy faced many difficulties during the recovery period after the effect of the world economic fluctuating 2008 to 2009. Accordingly, interest rates were stable at 8% during the first 10 months of the year and adjusted up 9% in the last 2 months of the year due to the pressure of inflation. Welcome Gil will continue me.
Okay, thank you, Han. Now I'm gonna continue from Park in 2011. In 2011 to 2016, The inflation rate has been controlled, decreased steadily, and is currently at low level. The inflation rate, after rising sharply in the first half of 2011, has decreased and has been stable so far, specifically from peak of 18.13% in 2011 to 6.81% in 2012, 6.04% in 2030, and less than 2% in period of 2013 and 2015. Up to the present time, the interest rate for medium and long-term loans is about 40-70% compared to the end of 2011, and is equivalent to the interest rate of period 2005 to 2006. With effort in interest rate management, in the short term, leading interest rate have been reduced by more than half, from 20% year, even 24% years, to only 9% to 11% and 9% years, about 6.5% year for priority fields. In 2011, the State Bank of Vietnam had quickly applied tight policy to control the high credit growth rate from over 30% to over 14% to support inflation control. In 2012, when credit growth showed signs of stagnation affecting economic growth, the state bank quickly changed its operating target toward credit growth, but occasionally. Thanks to that, credit growth has recovered over years, specifically 8.85% in 2012. 2030 was 12.51%, and period. Credit growth averaged over 30% years, lower than average growth rate of 33.3% year in the period of 2006 to 2010, but economic growth still reached reasonable level. In 2016 to 2020, in the period of 2016 to 2019, just before the pandemic, Vietnam economy proved the dynamic with an average GDP growth rate of 6.8% years. The quality of growth improved thanks to the improvement of energy efficiency, capacity, inflation was controlled below 4%, creating a stable macro environment, attracting FDI, therapy, promoting exports, and continued trade surplus in the context of declining international trade. IMF assesses that in 2020, Vietnam GDP scale may rank fourth in Asia. The national credit rating has continuously increased. In 2020, in the context of pandemic, with the right policy of the government, Vietnam economic growth will still reach 2.91% in a group of the highest growth countries in the world and leading in the Asian countries, with the macro environment continues to be stable, in which the average core inflation in 2020 in at 2.31%, contributing to controlling the overall average inflation at 3.23%. That is end of my part. Next, my partner will continue the presentations.
Here are some data on Vietnam economy that I have collected from above. Next slide. So I will compare Vietnam to USA. First, in 2008, interest rate increased by 70%, 97% for deposit rate and 67% for lending rate, respectively. Vietnam interest rate increased due to inflation at 19.9%, and in USA, US interest rates are almost zero. Um, uh, the US on over on average each month from January to September. There were 84% of U.S. workers losing their job. On 2013, interest rate in Vietnam fluctuated from 8% to 6%, from 6% to 9%. The inflation in Vietnam is moderate 6.7%. The exchange rate quite stable for a long time. The level of national credit risk has improved. And in US, um, unemployment rate fell, inflation rate increased, and GDP growth improved. Maintain low interest rate, 0% to 0.25%. USA GDP fell in 2015 or 13, although the USA economy still faces many difficulties, it has stable. Tight finances and high public debt are still factors holding back development, causing the disagreement between the two political parties of each country. Unemployment rate fell, the inflation rate increased, and GDP growth improved. In 2015, core inflation in November 2015 in Vietnam increased by 0.05% over the period month by 1.72% over the same period last year. Average core inflation in the first 11 months of 2015 increased by 2.8% over the same period in 2014 and was the lowest in the past 40 years. And in USA remain at 0%. Then the United States raised the basis interest rate by 0.25%. Inflation is at 2%. In 2017, in Vietnam, interest rate decreased to 6.25% in turn, 4.725% and 7.25%. In general, compared to 2016, the growth was not expected. In 2017, Vietnam economy showed a better side with a growth rate of the whole year. And in US, the US Treasury Department said US consumers remain upbeat and to continue to speak, thereby offsetting of quickness in business, investment, and government spending. In 2019, the interest rate fell to 6%, respectively 4% and 7%. But in USA, the inflation is 1.7%, economy stable and development. In April of 2019, the US economy recorded a growth of 2.1%, equivalent to growth rate in the period quarter and higher than the growth forecast of economists. And the last, in 2020, in Vietnam, success in controlling the spread of the COVID-19 epidemic, Vietnam still maintained the macroeconomic stability and is a V-sharp recovery trend. But in USA, the economic recession officially started in February. Service unemployment figure seen early March. US stocks fell about 40% on March 2023, and the FID talk granted easing decision. Um, Reducing interest rate trend in March, bringing short-term interest rate from 1.15 to 1.75% to near zero, and 10-year government bond yield below 1%. And next, Tài will talk about USA and Japan.
Compare Vietnam, Japan. Khánh Văn talk about Vietnam among with this speaker, I will talk about Japan. uh, and 20 Japan policy with cut rate. The cut was 0.3%, beginning with down to 0.2%. At the same time, the Bank of Japan refinancing with for commercial bank was also reduced by 0.25% to 0.5%. 2010, the raising interest rate will be on every day in the range from 0% to 0.1% instead to 0.1% day before. The interest rate will be maintained at 0% if the spread is not stable. 2015, Japan adopt negative interest rate. The uh, 0% interest rate means that the central bank will expect a change of fee of 0.1% on term deposit by commercial bank. 2021 model interest rate set at 1 0.1% for some account he has by financial interest. Yeah, station at the POT to online the return of the money the economy go spending or in investment. Next slide. Vietnam interest rate and inflation rate are higher than the other two countries, so that Vietnam is development country, the U.S. and the same and Japan interest rate inflation always remain at the stable level, 0%. The currency of the U.S. and the Japan has higher denomination than Vietnam. They often invest in real estate, horses, or business instead of development. Many the bank thứ biệt hai inflation. Next, continue.
Hello everyone, I'm Han and I will talk about reason for interest rate change. There is political short-term benefits, consumption postponements, inflation expectation, alternative investment risk, liquidity priority, and tax. Next slide, please.
Firstly, short-term political benefits. Lowering in interest rate can provide the economy with short-term loss. Under normal conditions, most economists think that rate cuts will provide only short-term gain in economic activity. Which will quickly be offset by inflation. Rapid growth can affect election. Most economists focus in independent central bank to limit to the influence of politics on interest rate. Secondly, improves consumption. When money is bullish, lender delay spending money on consumer goods. According to time frequency theory, people prefer person goods to virtual goods. So in practice, there would be a positive interest rate. Inflation inflation. Most economists generally inhibit inflation, which means that a certain amount of the money can buy fewer goods in the future than it can be buy in the present. The goal is to compensate the lender for this. Latest investment lender can choose to use fund independent environment if he choose one side of the environment. He enjoys the return from other environment, different environment from this for real money. Again,
And what is investment risk? There is always a risk that the borrower will go bankrupt, run away, die, or default on the loan. And tax is since some interest income may be taxable, the lender may demand a higher interest rate to make up for this loss. And liquidity priority is everyone wants the available resource in a firm that is immediately exchangeable, not in a firm that takes time to. Ê, wait. Tao lộn rồi. Quay, tao nói thiếu hết trơn rồi.
Lộn.
Tao lo đọc trên slide không à. Đúng á.
Lộn thì dừng 5 giây rồi nói lại chứ kiểu này chắc cắt chết luôn á.
Không,
cắt
mà mày lúc nào con hạnh nó nói
tao cái đoạn cuối mà.
Vô, mày vô, cái phần tao xong rồi đó.
Đoạn cuối mà.
Gì của con nó
từ từ.
Cho
Đoạn cuối với cái đoạn đầu nó
bị cái phần tao nó xong rồi đúng không? Tao ghen hại được xong không? Cắt của nó rồi. Hiểu không?
Nè,
Đoạn cuối, cái
nói
đoạn
lại
mà đầu tiên là giới thiệu 7 cái á, với lại cái cuối á, với lại cắt cái đoạn này nè.
nè, hồi nãy bên nãy bắt đầu từ cái đoạn này nè, Hiệp nó nói xong nó bắt đầu từ đoạn nào nó nói là từ khúc đó.
Đó,
Nè bây giờ cho
1,
dừng
2,
5
3,
giây á để bắt
để
đầu
đếm
nói
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 đó là nói này. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 nói mày.
And what is investment risk? Investment risk is that it always a risk that the borrower will go bankrupt, run away, die, or default on the plan. This means that a lender typically generates revenue to ensure that throughout his investment, he compensates for investment that fails. And that is since some interest income may be stackable, the lender may demand a higher interest rate to make up the for this loss. And liquidity priority is everyone wonder available result in a firm that is immediately exchangeable, not in a firm that takes time to implement. And that's our presentation. Thank you for listening.
Xong rồi đúng không? Thế mày ý mày cắt theo ấy của nó nhá Tài. Tao vỗ
Không
mà.
ai vỗ tay trời.
Vỗ ủng hộ mày đó.
Ok, là giờ á, là
nói
có
gì
cái đoạn đầu là nó bị không bị khớp á, là cái phần mà reason several reason á, cái đoạn đầu mà tôi nói